That's what education is.
You know, we spend so much time telling our kids not to take candy from strangers, and then we just throw them into strangers'
Well,
homes.
we don't throw them.
Well, no. Well, with our tax dollars,
we pay
with our
social
tax
workers
dollars,
to do it.
we pay to have them thrown to strangers, and so maybe later on in life, another stranger comes along and says, you know, I want you to do this, and that thing that's supposed to go off in your head to say danger, danger, goes away.
But it doesn't, because
your own
people think the
intuition.
ministry are doing their job, and they really do need to get into those homes to help those children that need it, because there really are children who are being abused and need it.
People only believe
And everyone
that.
believes that. Nobody wants to see that maybe it's the ministry and the government that are abusing the children in society and creating all these mental cases in our communities, because they're not looking at the heart and soul of the problem. They're
And
just
they're
looking at money in their
creating
pocket.
much greater problems. Like I said, at the street church, I can't tell you how many conversations I get into with different people all the time that, you know, it turns out that, oh yeah, well, the ministry, you know, got involved in my life and here I am, you know, wow, like they're creating a whole new...
And they're so emotional, they can't discuss it anymore, they don't want to talk about it.
It's
a
lack of
I
commitment, because
met an 80-year-old man who was in the care of the government when he was younger. An 80-year-old man. It's like, how long has this been going on?
But every time something tragic happens, everybody's all upset about it, and we want to know the answers, and we get the news that everything's been okay. Everybody relaxes, you know, but it's going to happen again. Unless we stand there and just keep saying, what changes have you made? What implementation,
What's the truth? What's really going on? Who's hiding what story here?
But what is the real way to make positive change and keep it rolling?
And what would positive change look like? What would a child protection system that benefits our child, what would that look like? And we need to start talking about that so that we know and get that picture in our head, because...
So how do you do that?
How do we do that? We talk about it.
Who's we?
Us, the people, the parents, you know, sit around and talk about what we want it to look like.
If you really want to change something that's going to affect your children, you need to ask your children.
Well, fortunately, an awful lot of children watch YouTube, and this video is on YouTube, and they will be seeing it, and they will be listening and learning about this.
But we're not allowed to talk to our children.
But the problem is, I was told by a judge that...
Are we allowed to talk to strangers' children?
I was told by a judge that children do not make decisions. Adults make decisions for children.
And that's why our children grow up and don't know how to make
Is that simple?
Judge
He's got the power to keep the children from the parents. And it's that mentality that we're having to deal with, the power of the people.
So we go back again. It's a systemic problem. It's a systemic problem. There's a propensity in capitalism to keep things the way they are. What we're saying to you, the way things are, do not work for our kids.
Status quo.
Sure. The children need to have the full benefit of what we do for them. Right now, it's an absolute disservice.
The children have to be allowed to be responsible for what they want and what they say, and that way they learn responsibility for their...
It's interesting that you use those two words, because you see, when you're talking about being responsible, a real important aspect of being responsible is this. If my kid breaks a couple of plates in the kitchen, I am not going to walk in and say, I'm responsible for those broken dishes. No, I'm just responsible to you as your dad, who's going to tell you accidents will happen.
But clean it up so no one gets hurt.
There you go. So when you're talking and using the word responsibility, you're using two elements. One is being responsible for and being responsible to. You cannot be responsible for your child's actions. You're responsible to that child as being a good parent.
keeping them safe.
Yep, as a
And that's how they grow. That is
and
how children grow. They learn how to be responsible for their own actions. In
Well,
other
they
words,
reflect their
they
environment.
do something and they say, yes, I did. I'm able to answer. And you as a parent, being responsible to that child, you have to say, okay, now we know that you did something, let's fix it.
See,
Not
that's
like
where a
social
lot of
services is saying, You did something, we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, they point the finger and
We'll send you to a foster home.
But I think that actually that's where a lot of parents make a mistake is when they freak out when a child does something wrong and yell and scream, and then the child never wants to go to them for
So who was
their
supposed
advice.
to teach those parents not to freak out?
Well, it would be excellent if we had a child protection system that provided those
There
types
you
of
go.
services.
but open-minded in all aspects. I mean, what about parents that are making love and the children walk in and the parents freak out, and that's imprinting on the children that love is taboo and hidden, and yet that very power is what created them and what creates this world and fuels and enlivens the plants in the garden, and that whole mentality has just been smited.
When you do that, you get
it's
children.
taboo and disgusting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but that comes
If
from
you
that
make a
comes
big
from
deal out of
religion.
It
they'll
becomes
make
a big deal.
out
Then
of
you
it.
get
the social workers will persecute you for exposing yourself in front of
Even if
children
it's
walking in on you.
accidental.
you see.
I was told we're supposed to have the door locked.
Oh, I would never
Locked.
lock my door on my kids. How would they get in if they needed you?
Exactly.
Well, if
Someone's-
you're in bed naked, then you have to have the door locked.
What uptight social worker told you that?
Well, it was both a couple RCMP and social workers here in town,
Yeah, well,
and actually a
I'd like to
couple
see-
lawyers also.
I'd like to see where in the
reiterated
criminal
that.
code it says that.
Well,
you're not supposed to lock your door. But I
Imagine-
never locked any doors when my kids were,
Okay,
living
so
with me
we go
because
Yeah,
back-
but
if
it's a
there's an
locked door for
emergency-
you and an unlocked door for them.
So we go back to the same problem. This is a systemic problem. You raise your children the wrong way, and you end
What
up
is the
having.
wrong way?
But you
What is
start,
the
if you
right
start
way?
taking a social worker's advice, you can't because their ideas are so ridiculous. It's like what you're saying about homeschooling. When I was awarded custody back of my oldest daughter at one point briefly, and I wanted to put her in homeschooling. I was going to say home care, but I wanted to homeschool her. Oh no, we'll put her in alternative school. And we had this argument back and forth. It's like she won't get a proper education. Well, we know that, but she can always go back to get the other credits that she needs. No, why don't I just do it here with her? She's not going to attend class anyways. And the alternative school, their dropout rate is enormous. It's ridiculous.
That view
So anyways,
is changing
they're
slowly,
trying to
though, as
tell
more
me,
people homeschool.
they're trying to tell me what's going to, benefit my daughter the most.
But from start to finish in the last 4 years, we've had probably 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 social workers involved in the case. So were we supposed to listen to who? Social worker A, B,
But
C,
why
D,
listen
E,
to them?
F,
Why
because
should
they're all
we
going
give
from a
into
different
what
book.
they think we should do with our kids? My idea to homeschool my daughter was, although they ended up taking her before she ever started doing it, but why should I have to give in my beliefs and my values because they think she should be in alternative school, or they think Buddhism is inappropriate for young children, or they think that the way that I deal with her sneaking out at night, to go see some guy who's way too old, isn't right. Why should I have to
Why are they getting
take
involved
on-
in her life?
Because they're
it's like,
educated
oh,
and